India has, of course, welcomed the order. This is what the Law Minister told NDTV just a short while back.
It is a big snub to Pakistan, okay? Regardless of whatever the Attorney General has said, I don't wish to make any comment. But the court's order is clear. A rank violation of the consular access provisions of Vienna Convention.
Now, what's been the reaction from Pakistan? Pakistan actually came out with a long statement out there, essentially saying India has no substance in the case, blah, blah, blah. But the long and the short of it is Pakistan essentially has, well, they seem to be indicating they're going to be abiding by it, but I wouldn't, completely rule out anything that Pakistan does. This essentially, though, is what their main statement was after that verdict.
After India stood exposed in state-sponsored terrorism, terror financing, spying and subversive activities, it has desperately tried to divert the world attention by presenting Kulbhushan's case from humanitarian angle.
And I am going to go across to Harish Salve in just a couple of minutes, but just to point out, that's not really flying very well. What Pakistan is trying to say, what they're making claims that, oh, well, we went in there for whatever reason, not quite working. The Pakistani government is coming under sustained attack. Look at just some of the tweets that are out there. We'll keep on flashing them for you. Angry tweets that have come out. Now, I just want to try and set the stage for what we're going to be discussing. Let's just try and understand what the roadmap is going forward. Remember, it's a big victory, but it's the first step in actually getting Kulbhushan Jadhav back home safe and sound. And that essentially is what our goal is. What is it that India had really asked for? Number one was the immediate suspension of Jadhav's death sentence. This was crucial because, as India said to the ICJ, they've said they could execute him anytime after August. ICJ understood that, recognized that, spoke about the irreversible prejudice to India's case in case Pakistan did go ahead and execute him. So this India has got granted. The ICJ has said in no uncertain terms he cannot be executed. But India wants some other things, and we still have to wait to get these done. We want them to declare that the Pak military court defied the Vienna Convention. On this, the court is yet to rule. We want them to direct Pakistan to annul the military court order. This again is yet to be decided on. And if Pakistan does not annul the decision, then to direct Pakistan to release Jadhav. Now this, of course, also still remains to be seen. Now, the big question that we're going to be discussing is what is going to happen next. And I'm just going to start by welcoming my guest. Nalin Kohli, spokesperson of the BJP, is joining us. G Parthasarathy, who's really been a former diplomat, done a lot of work on this, is going to be talking to us as well. We have Talat Masood and Hussain Haqqani are going to be joining us just shortly to be talking about it from a Pakistani point of view. Siddharth Luthra is here with us as well. I'm just trying to understand what the possible permutations are while we get Harish Salve up. This is binding, and the ICJ was at great pains to tell Pakistan categorically today that this is binding upon you. Some words from Pakistan, well, it might not be completely binding. It is binding. What happens if Pakistan in some way refuses to accept that?
Unlike a domestic court, the International Court of Justice is a court whereby parties bind themselves to accept their decision, and that's part of the treaty arrangement that you have. That's part of the acceptance of the court's jurisdiction. Now, Pakistan may try and say that they don't accept the court's decision, but then we, as India, have the right to go to the Security Council and say these measures have to be taken to ensure that Pakistan enforces this. Now, it's been known in the past that Security Council does act to enforce the court's decisions, and it can happen in this case as well. And I don't think Pakistan or any country in today's day and age would like to be declared as a rogue state or be treated as a rogue state by breaching the court's orders, especially when they have gone there, they've accepted the jurisdiction of the court, they've argued on jurisdiction and not succeeded with their preliminary challenge.
So unlikely that Pakistan is going to defy this and actually go ahead and try to execute Kulbhushan Jadhav. So hopefully he is safe for the moment till the final verdict comes in. I'm just going to get Nalin and Mr. Parthasarathy on that. Mr. Parthasarathy, if I can just come to you, you are aware, of course, in the past it has happened, notably from the United States, that they've defied what the ICJ said. And I'm going to give you two notable examples. April 1998, Paraguay versus the United States. The UN court had said take all measures to prevent the execution of a Paraguayan national at that point. The US went ahead, executed that national 5 days after that verdict came in. Then March 1999, Germany versus the United States. Germany denied consular access to 2 Germans arrested in the US. They filed an appeal against the execution in the World Court, and the US went ahead and executed one of the Germans before that case was heard, and one other later. So it's happened in the past by the United States, but based on the signals that are coming out, including from Pakistan, would you be reasonably sure, Mr. Parthasarathy, that Pakistan is not going to actually go ahead and defy this order?
First, let me say one thing, Vikram, about this judgment. I have never seen an occasion when 12 judges of the International Court of Justice unanimously and so quickly reached very profound decisions. And these include, for example, the denial of Pakistan's claim that this is a military court, the acceptance of the Vienna Convention prevailing over the bilateral agreement, the direction to Pakistan not to proceed ahead with anything, and that the Indian, and lastly, re-endorsing the Indian demand for consular access. So I think as far as the case stands today, we are sitting okay. And this is a procedure which is going to take time, because the World Court meets once in 3 or 4 months. There has to be a lot of exchange. But Pakistan, in the meantime, cannot execute Jadhav. Now, therefore, this is going to be a dragged-out procedure, and let me say, many things will come in the way. We can sometime later talk. We have in the past talked about exchanges. As situations change, we'll have to see how it goes. But right now, we are sitting top of the world as far as the judicial verdict is concerned. And I can't see Pakistan going against that. The more important, one last thing, the more important thing is the impact this is going to have on the domestic politics of Pakistan. The military got too big for its boots. It violated international law and is now blaming the civilian government for not doing enough.
Okay.
I mean, this is ridiculous.
Valid points. I'm going to come back to that in just a couple of minutes. And as I said, Harish Salve is about to come in and join us. Let's talk to the man of the match. Nandan Kohli, it was in many ways a high-risk gamble that the government took, and a gamble that has paid off. Going to the ICJ, risking the fact that Pakistan and others will start talking about internationalization, as in fact they have indicated today. But it's paid off, and in a sense, at least for the moment, big victory for India. And now we will see how the rest of the case plays itself out.
Well, I think I look at it a little differently. I think it's a reaffirmation and a confirmation of the strategy and the approach of the Narendra Modi government, which means reaching out to Indians who are in trouble and, it's in some cases literally rescuing them out of war-torn areas like Yemen or say Afghanistan or Somalian pirates. So not abandoning any Indian citizen. And I think that approach is consistent. With the Kulbhushan Yadav case, the same thing is being done. With regard to Pakistan, there is another aspect that comes in. In a situation where an unambiguous, a unanimous, clearly worded, specific order has come out, where the consular access ought to be and has to be provided, if Pakistan delays that also, or denies it again, it will raise serious questions as to why are they denying it. It's not that Pakistan did not try to put out its best foot forward, unlike what their commentators are saying on TV. They did put their best foot forward. They wanted to even bring in what they call the evidence of the confession statement. That was denied. Every argument has been denied, as Mr. Parthasarathy said. So I think today Pakistan will find itself at a bar. I think today what we need to recognize is that what the Prime Minister and the government is doing, and in terms of the strategy, and what was delivered superbly by Mr. Harish Salve as a senior advocate and as an eminent advocate, has today worked out well. It is good for Kulbhushan, for his family, and for Indians who are once again reaffirmed that the government of India will work for their rights and will reach out to help any Indian in distress.
Right. How it's going to play out in the domestic politics is interesting. I just want to, before we go across to Harish Salve, whom I can see getting mic'd up in a sense, even as I'm speaking, Hussain Haqqani is joining us now. Very prominent Pakistani, diplomat, of course, former Pakistan's permanent representative to the United Nations. Mr. Haqqani, how is this going to play out in Pakistan now? Do you think there are some people, there's a lot of, obviously it's becoming a big domestic political issue in Pakistan as well. Do you think Pakistan would be well advised to pay heed to what the ICJ has said and to try and de-escalate the situation insofar as Kulbhushan and Jadhav is concerned? Or do you think a high-risk gamble will continue to be played?
Taken my advice, we wouldn't be at this point, would be. I have consistently advised that Pakistan's best course of action as a nation is to mend fences with India. We need to accept that India is the larger neighbor and that instead of focusing on disputes, we need to have friendship with India first, but that is not the choice of Pakistan's establishment. Let us understand what's going on here. Pakistan's establishment understands they don't have much international support on this issue. They understand that the rest of the world knows that there are spies occasionally, and even if this was a spy, which they have not been able to prove, consular access would still be necessary. When I was Pakistan's ambassador to the United States, we asked for consular access even for Pakistanis who were in Guantanamo Bay, charged with terrorism. And the U.S. did grant that access. So to deny consular access was actually
Mr.
the wrong ab initio.
All right, Mr. Haqqani, I get the point you're making. I don't want to come back to that a little later, but I do want to get Harish Salve. Harish Salve is now joining us, very much the man of the match. Mr. Salve, thank you so much for joining us live here at 9:30. You've got a big smile on your face, Mr. Salve, and I'm not surprised because I have to say, you know, we all really think you're the man of the match today. Your arguments, the way you presented them, the way you, every single one of those arguments accepted by the ICJ. So first of all, our congratulations. And
congratulate India, congratulate the government. It was a huge decision for the government to take to move the ICJ. You must now at least concede one thing. The secrecy with which we planned everything, the way we timed it, I mean, all this is, I say, salute. The External Affairs Minister was personally looking at every step. No emails were sent, everything was kept quiet. And that's how we had a little advantage when we moved the court.
Right, and I think, you know, a lot of people are talking about the fact that you won such a major victory, you know, for India. And of course, that 1 rupee thing keeps coming up. You're not even, you know, you've done it just for the nation. So that's also getting on the
completely irrelevant. I thought Sushma ji got angry on somebody, and she tweeted that out. So it's a public duty. Any citizen of India would have done willingly and happily. So I don't think there's anything of a great moment there.
Okay, no one better than you, sir, to help us understand what exactly lies behind the order. So if you could just lay it out for us a little bit, and nobody better than to you.
So
what was it that we were arguing, and what is it that the court has now said? If you could just
sort of explain that what we are doing, and let's be very clear what we are not doing. This is not a court of appeal, unlike some people feel that we will be able to show he is innocent. That's not what this is for. This is a international court where we say that the procedure which Pakistan has adopted in arriving at this death sentence violates principles of the Vienna Convention, which is a multilateral treaty, and that has its own dispute resolution treaty, which is called the optional protocol, that has no reservations. There are 3 past instances where the International Court of Justice took a serious view of American violations of this treaty, but the advantage, in a manner of speaking, America has is its high credibility. So at the end they said, all right, you take measures to make sure that the verdict is annulled and proper consular access is provided and things are resolved. In some cases there was genuine confusion. For example, in American, if you catch somebody who is of German descent, you don't know, America being what it is, you don't know whether really know whether he's still a German or whether he has become an American. So in those situations, these kind of mess-ups happen. Now in India, they were clearly, it was clearly a foreign national by their own assertion. The moment you say he's an Indian spy means you say he's an Indian national. So if it's a foreign national whom you are trying, you cannot take away consular access, because consular access makes your right of legal representation meaningful. Imagine yourself in military custody in a foreign land, hostile situation, incommunicado. What kind of legal defense will you run? How will you defend yourself? What is the meaning of such a trial? So it's not whether there is evidence or there is no evidence, but the manner in which this whole trial is being conducted, in our words, renders it farcical. What is the relief? The relief which we have asked for, inspired partly by certain past precedents, is what is called there's a Latin phrase we use, restitutio in integrum, which means complete restitution. Now what is restitution? You breached my right the moment you arrested me and didn't call my counsel. So rewind up to that point. So annulment of the decision.
Okay.
And now after which, where do we go? Now we are running a point, and the concurring opinion of one of the judges picks up that point which I thought we should run today. That even after the Vienna Convention, which is 63, the world has moved on, international law has evolved. We now have the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, so we must read all this as one integrated jurisprudence. So when the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights says that there must be fair and free trial, there must be full legal representation, this becomes a dimension of that. Now if there is an egregious violation of all these international law principles, should not the matter come to an end and the person set at liberty? I mean, he has suffered for 1 year. He's been on death row now. He would have been, by the time the case is decided, on death row for 2 years. So these are all new path-breaking cases, and let's see where we go. But this is what the broad remit of this case is.
So, sir, if I could then take it forward, because obviously what all of us here in India are asking is how can we get Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav back to the country. So what all is it that the ICJ will now be, when they are saying that you have to wait for the final decision, and they seem to have said stay the execution until a final decision is reached.
Yes.
What will be the final decision that we will expect from them, and what is it that we have to go back to Pakistan for?
Correct. So what we are asking for is restitution. Now what extent is restitution depends on the facts of the case and depends on the state of jurisprudence. We are hoping to convince the ICJ, and I start by telling you this is an evolving jurisprudence, but then that has never deterred at least adventurous lawyers like me, because law has to move on, and unless you try, you get nowhere. So one option is to argue that such egregious violation of human rights must compel the man being released. He has suffered enough. That's one way of looking at it. The other is at least annul everything, get him proper legal representation, and then let him be tried in a manner which is acceptable in civilized society.
But in the second case, it's again, he's in a sense back at the mercy of Pakistani courts. This was, of course, an outrageous kangaroo court with no representation.
That's clearly plan B. That's not plan A, Vikram.
Sorry? Yeah,
that's plan B, that's not plan A.
All right. So plan A is to try and just say that you should
a considerable effort on our part, which we will put in, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
But I am satisfied today, all the points we made, prima facie the court accepted today. So we think we are on the right track, and we have tuned in the sense that we are moving in the right direction. And ultimately there is a power above all of us which governs the destiny of men. If it is in Kulbhushan's destiny to come back home, I'm sure he will.
All right, sir. Would you like to just share with us any thoughts, any anecdotes? Because I'm sure people are wondering what was it like when all of this was happening. I know it's going to embarrass you, but I'm going to keep coming back to that ₹1 fee that you were charging, while the Pakistani, I don't know how much he was charging, some very fat amount. So, there
was an article in the Times about it. I don't know whether you know, the London Times.
That's exactly what I'm referring to. That's exactly what I'm referring to.
See, so for me, this is not a commercial case. And when the External Affairs Minister called me and said, is there any remedy? Actually, your channel started this problem, because in one of my interviews on your channel, I said that India should explore the ICJ option. I think somebody picked it up from there. So the External Affairs Minister called me and said, I said, give me 2 days time. And this was actually, now I can tell you honestly, this was in the middle of April. And I have a sort of a busy diary with a few commitments here and there. And I had to sort of squeeze time in between for everything to get all the papers ready. Before I left India, all the paperwork was done, it was ready. We were waiting. There was some efforts which we were trying to make to see if we could find, because you see, jumping to the ICJ also, if he had made a false start, he would have been where Pakistan is today, with everybody saying, oh my God, India, jumped. So it was a huge responsibility and we had to time it perfectly. Sushma ji led from the front. We decided finally that we will lodge it on the 8th morning. And she requested me, I went down to The Hague. I met the registrar, I convinced him of the urgency, and we were very happy. Within 2 days, President Ronnie Abraham passed that first order and gave us 15th.
Right, of course, and the stay had to happen, or there had been irreparable prejudice. Just to ask you, the decision when you were going to the ICJ, when you were arguing, there's been a lot of criticism from the Pakistani opposition that, oh, they may not have argued their case very well, although it was a pretty bad case to start off with, in a sense. Were you reasonably confident you would get as sweeping a victory as you were able to get today? Were you fairly confident?
Can I tell you, I can only tell you what I told Arnab Goswami in the morning. You've been a top student yourself. You know what happens. You work hard, you prepare, you go and give your paper, you say I've maxed it, and then the butterflies begin.
Okay.
Till you see your result.
So eventually you were on the merit list. Well done, Mr. Salve. Thank you so much from all of us here, and many compliments from the entire nation, I'm sure, for the sterling work you've done. And it was great talking to you as well, live from London on this show. I think we probably just have enough time for final quick thoughts from all of you. The path forward that Harish Salve just laid out, are you reasonably hopeful that the ICJ may come up with what he said is pretty much plan A, which is to say the process wasn't followed, he suffered enough, just release him and allow him to come home?
If you see today's decision, the ICJ decision and the supplementing decision of the judge, I think that plan should follow through, because the gross illegality of the manner in which this man has been dealt with is apparent. And I think the way the court is looking at this, I'm quite confident that Mr. Salve will bring us victory, and all the best to him.
As per plan A.
As per plan A.
Without having to resort once again to the Pakistani.
No, I'm very clear. I'm hoping and I believe that we should get plan A. I'm not even thinking of plan B. I'm a little more optimistic.
Okay. Plan A should work out. Mr. Parthasarathy, are you equally hopeful that what Harish Salve has just outlined as the plan A for India now, which means you don't have to go back at all to the Pakistani legal system, you just try and get this settled at the ICJ level, you're reasonably hopeful that will happen?
Well, listen, I would be hopeful if we were dealing with a normal state. You are dealing with a state at war with itself, between its military establishment and its government. So yes, with all zeal, with all dedication, proceed with plan A, but do keep plans B, C and D ready for contingencies.
Okay, before I toss it across to Nalin, is there anything else, any other way that you think India should try and take advantage of the situation? There is, of course, some turmoil, again in Pakistan now, internal politics has really flared up, as we've been seeing from some of the comments. Anything else that you think India should do to try and take advantage of the situation? Very briefly, before I get a final word from Nalin.
Well, is that to me?
Yeah, Mr. Parthasarathy.
Yeah, well, let me say this, that there is diplomacy involved. There are channels of communication you need to keep in such circumstances. I am a firm believer in that. Channels of communication that are reliable and can handle matters of extreme sensitivity.
Okay.
Because many of these issues, yes, you go along with plan A, very good, but in plans B, C and D, other options, keep them ready. Okay. And see if you can move ahead on any one of those also, but keep firmly committed to plan A.
All right.
Till we push Pakistan to a position where
Mr. Parthasarathy, let me just get a final word from Nalin on the show before I have to wrap out. Nalin, plan A, go for it. Plan A as outlined by Harish Salve on this show just a short while back, but keep plan B and C and perhaps D ready is what Mr. Parthasarathy is recommending.
But of course, that's exactly how even Mr. Salve is saying so, that you keep all your options, but you have to go all out for the option that you consider is the best option forward. In any case, you've got the government, and this government has really worked itself up and worked it out well. And you've got on that side Mr. Salve, who's been leading the legal effort there. So I think between them, certainly what needs to be done will be done. And the very fact that we moved so far and at the threshold put Pakistan on notice, put them on the defensive, and have a specific, unambiguous and clearly worded order against them in terms of consular access, I think that's a good beginning. Now we should be optimistic about this for the steps further.
All right, Nalan, well, thank you all so much for joining us with that perspective. It was great getting a sense of what's happening. Big day there at the ICJ, completely and categorically endorsing India's position, certainly when it comes to granting a stay on the execution of Kulbhushan Jadhav, accepting their jurisdiction. In a number of ways, it was a big, big day. But it's the first step towards being able to get Kulbhushan Jadhav safely back. Siddharth and others were saying there's reason to be optimistic, and the plan as laid out by Harish Salve hopefully is a plan that will soon come into effect, and we will be able to get Kulbhushan Jadhav back, and back fairly soon. You're watching Reality Check. We'll be back again soon. Thanks for watching.